The Chicago Bulls currently sit outside of the play-in tournament, and with only about a quarter of the season left, there's a whole lot of things that could happen. And with a real shot to sneak into the playoffs, I think that we need to talk a little bit about what the Bulls need to do to climb their way into the play-in tournament. So let's just get right into it. There's no need for a whole lot of intro to this. First, the Bulls kind of already have the groundwork set up. Their defense through most of the year has been great. They're currently sitting, I think, top 10 in the league. Not only that, but after adding Patrick Beverley, this defense stepped up a whole bunch. And although, maybe it's a little bit of excitement, maybe it's the Patrick Beverley effect, not so sure, but they held the first two games since Patrick Beverley joined, held the opposite teams, to less than 100 points. And against the Raptors, did a very, very good job allowing 103 points. The defense has been great this year. Not only that, but offensively, this team is good. If not great, they have, although a little bit inconsistent, they have three guys in Zach, DeMar, and Vooch that could all score 20 in any given night. And those two things alone are enough to win you games and get you into the play-in spot and even into the playoffs. This team has everything set up that they need to make the push, but that's not always enough. Now, the next thing is that the Bulls do have a little bit of a easier schedule. And although you can see behind me, probably not too great because, it's small in the video, the Bulls have the 9th easiest strength of schedule remaining through the year. They have a very light schedule, and although they do have some difficult games throughout the rest of the year, they're in a spot that they can take advantage of everything that's going on. They have 9 of the remaining games are going to be against current playoff teams. Of course, meaning 1 through 6 in either conference. 9 games. Although that's a tough spot, not all these teams are great. The Nets, who likely will fall into the playoff tournament or play-in tournament, are currently in the playoffs, so they do count towards that. And there's some other teams here that by the time this game is occurring, might not be pushing so hard because they already guaranteed their spot in the playoffs. But you do have 9 teams that are currently in the playoffs that the Bulls will have to face off against through the last 20 or so games. You also have 3 games against current play-in tournament teams. 3 games, not a whole bunch, and that's about where the Bulls sit. So you're going to be going against 3 teams that are right at your level. And I think the Bulls should be able to take on those people very, very well. And finally, you have 6 games against teams that are not in the playoffs or in the play-in tournament. Of course, you should be able to beat those bad teams, and hopefully the Bulls are going to be able to do that. And with all that being said, you're going against 9 teams that are in the playoffs and 9 teams that are at or below the Bulls' current playing level. That puts you in a really, really good spot. About 50-50 split, exactly, actually. And the Bulls need to take advantage of the possibility that they have sitting in front of them. They need to take full advantage of this schedule and win these games. And although as we look over here in March, there are definitely some tough teams. You have the Phoenix Suns on the 3rd. You have Denver, who is currently the 1 seed in the West, on next Wednesday. You have the Kings, who have looked very, very good and have, I believe, the best offense in the entire league, at least points per game wise. That's going to be a tough matchup for the defense. That's coming up on the 15th, and you have plenty of teams in here that are going to be difficult, but they're kind of spaced out nicely. You have the Phoenix Suns, of course, on the 3rd, as mentioned, and then you have Indianapolis, the Pacers, who I think are currently right below the Bulls in the standings. And then you have Denver, and then you have Houston, who is a very, very poor team. And then you have the Sacramento Kings with a big gap here. You have a lot of, tough game, and then you kind of get a break. There's no 2 that are really side by side. They're difficult. Now, you do have Minnesota and then Miami. Those are 2 solid teams. I think Miami's kind of in a spot where they could move up. Minnesota has a very good roster. And then you have Philadelphia twice. You do have a little bit of a stretch there. 4 games, actually 5 games because of the Kings, where it's going to be difficult for about a week from the 15th till the 22nd. But once again, after that, it kind of gets easier. Portland, although honestly better team than I think the record says. Portland, that's not a great team. The Lakers, you don't know when LeBron's coming back, if at all. If the Lakers do bad when he's gone, he probably won't return this year. Then the Clippers, then the Lakers again, and then Charlotte. Not a whole lot of great teams there. In the final month in April, you have Memphis, who, is a very, very good team. Atlanta, who's in the fight for the play-in tournament. Milwaukee, great team. Dallas, great team. And then Detroit. You're kind of in a spot where you can not rest, but lighten up the load on some of these games and prepare for these tough games. Now, you do have to win these other games. You can't take it too easy, but you're in a solid spot there. And the next thing here is, even though the Bulls have a lighter schedule, it's not only about the Bulls winning. As you can see, the standings here behind me, and hopefully you can see them all, you have the Bucks, you have the Celtics, 76ers, Cavaliers, Knicks, Nets, all 1 through 6. And I do think the Nets will likely fall into the play-in, but I just don't see them falling all the way below the Bulls because, they have a little bit of a lead. They're, 7 games above, and I think they are a 500 team with the way the roster sits now. Those are a little bit out of reach, but you have the play-in tournament with the Heat, Hawks, Raptors, and Wizards, and of course, then the Bulls there. It's not only about the Bulls winning. No matter how great the Bulls do, if the teams above them just do the same, the Bulls won't make the playoffs. So let's kind of take a look at everything that's going on. As mentioned, you have Washington, Toronto, Atlanta, and Miami all above currently in the play-in tournament. And the Bulls are 1.5 games behind the play-in tournament currently, with that being the Wizards, as well as being, if I can find it here, they're 5 games behind the 7th seed, which is the highest point. So you need a big-time lead to get up into the play-in tournament, especially if you want to be in the top half and give yourself a chance to be able to lose one game and still make the playoffs. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So let's cover these teams team by team and what I think is the chance for not only the Bulls to jump over them, but also what their rest of the schedule looks like. Like I said, this is going to require one of these teams to fall a little bit while the Bulls do better for the Bulls to at least find their way into the play-in tournament. So first, let's start with the 10th seed and work our way up through the play-in tournament. The Wizards, although only 1.5 games above the Bulls, do have a little bit easier of a schedule. They have the 17th hardest schedule, so they're in the bottom half of difficulty to the schedule, and they have a solid team. They can definitely go about 500, and although I think the Bulls could overtake them, they are in a spot where it's going to be a fight no matter what happens. And let's cover this real quick before we get too far into it. There's a chance that if how things play out, the last 5, maybe even the last 10 games, the Bulls might have to go undefeated to make it into play-in. And that's very, very tough. The fact that you might be forced to win your last 5-10 games, and if we come back here, say the Bulls are forced to go undefeated through their last stretch here, it's going to be very, very difficult. The last 5 games, all occurring in April, are Memphis, Atlanta, Milwaukee, Dallas, and Detroit. It's going to be really, really hard for them to go undefeated. If they even stumble a little bit through the early part of March, they might be forced into a situation where they have to go undefeated. That's really, really hard to look at. And if it gets upgraded to 10 games, you have to go undefeated. Not only do you have all those that I mentioned, you also have Charlotte, Clippers, Lakers, and Lakers. So not too difficult there in Portland. So there's a chance I could see them winning all 5 of the first 10. You know what I mean? Portland to Charlotte, but the last 5 are really, really difficult. So it's going to be a fight nonetheless. Like I said, the Wizards have a little bit easier schedule, but I could see the Bulls overtaking them. I think they might have maybe a little bit better of a roster on paper than the Wizards do. But next up, you have the Raptors. They have the hardest remaining schedule in the entire league, which of course is good news for the Bulls. But nonetheless, they've shown that they can fight through adversity and win tough games. I mean, they have a shot, even with the hardest schedule in the whole league, to maybe upset some of these teams through the rest of the year. And that's something that you don't want to really see for the Bulls if they fight through. And not only that, but the Raptors just beat the Bulls, so they kind of have an extra leg up. The Bulls would have to not only match their number, but overtake them. Of course, the Raptors at 14, Bulls 16-5. The Bulls would have to win 3 more games through the last remainder of the season than the Raptors to overtake them. That's already getting to a little bit of a stretch if the Bulls don't get on a streak very, very early on. Then you have Atlanta is going to be next. That's your 8th seed. They have the 10th hardest remaining schedule, so a little bit in a difficult side of things, a little bit above half. But Atlanta's been very, very solid. They're 7-7 through the last 14 games. They putting them right at 500, and their current record is actually 500 exactly at 31-31. They are at 13.5. That means they're 3 above the Bulls right now, and I don't remember if the I know the Bulls beat the Hawks once. I don't remember if they faced off before that, so I don't know how tiebreakers work right now. But that's 3 games. If the Hawks remain on pace for 500 through the rest of the year, like they've done through the past 14 games, right at 500, that would mean that the Bulls would have to go 3 above that. So you got 18 games left. You'd have to win 12 games, and you could only lose 6 if I did the math right. 12-6 through the last 18 games. That's already a little bit of reach for the Bulls to overtake the Hawks. That's going to be difficult. And lastly, you have the Heat, who are in a much better team than their record, if I may say so myself. And I honestly see them moving into the playoffs, not the play-in. I mean, they're only 1.5 games behind the Nets, and I think they're better than the Nets. They just beat the 76ers in a really, really tough game. I don't really see the Bulls overtaking them, but it's going to be a tough climb for the Bulls. This puts the Bulls between a rock and a hard place, if we're being honest. And I know that's a little bit of oversaid kind of phrase there, but they would need to go nearly 75% record through the rest of the season to make that push into the play-in tournament if things all don't fall into the right place. And with all that, the Bulls, will have to battle. They're going to be in a tough spot. They're going to have to win games and also hope on other teams to lose games. That's something that you don't want to see. And with all that being said, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do it. I'm giving them a real shot. I do think they have a real chance to at least overtake the Wizards, maybe the Raptors, with the Raptors having the hard schedule, but it's going to be tough. But what do you all think? Do you think the Bulls will make the play-in tournament, or are they going to miss out? And how close is it going to be? How soon do you think the Bulls will make the play-in? Is this going to be something that happens pretty quick here? They're only 1 game behind the Wizards, or 1.5 behind the Wizards. Do you think this will happen sooner, or is this going to be right at the end of the year, scratching their nails, clawing into the play-in tournament? What do you guys all think? And as always, if you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. It truly means the world to me. And as always, I hope we all learned something today. I hope that we have a great day. As always, every single day can be a great day if we all just put in the effort. And as always, you guys all be safe out there.